So alongside everything else that I do, I've spent the last few years writing an inordinate amount of poetry. I love writing poetry. I'm addicted to writing poetry. I write poetry every single day. I do it for a variety of reasons. I do it as a kind of a release of emotion, I suppose, or as an exploratory device to explore myself and my own emotions, and to explore things I care about, or to find beautiful rhythms and patterns in language that just make me feel good and make me feel um, sort of elated and happy. And yeah, finding things which are pleasing to me and hopefully pleasing to other people, of course. So I thought I'd do a video all about advice for writing poetry. Since I'm also a published poet, I've been published this year in 2025 with Ranger Magazine. So you can check that out if you like. You can go to Ranger Magazine's website, the poetry magazine, and you'll find my name on the latest issue of that. And you can read a poem of mine if you want on there that got published. So I think I'm in a position to give advice at this point. And I don't know, for people starting out writing poetry, or for people starting, I think you've got to be clear like what your ambitions are with writing poetry. Do you want to write to get published? Do you just want to write for yourself and your friends? It depends really what you're looking to do, since you can write funny poems and great poems and really lovely things just for your mates. And I've known lots of poets who do that basically, or who go to poetry readings and just spit their stuff, and it could be in any kind of rhyme scheme or pattern. And sometimes it's really, really good, sometimes it's not so good. But if you're trying to get published, you sort of really need to read up on the sort of poetry that gets published and try and imitate that, I think. Since I write a lot of stuff that's very left field, very hard to get published, but stuff that I enjoy, stuff that I really, really connect with, and stuff that makes me laugh, for instance. So, for instance, I've got this is called Attack of the Bunny People, and it's a poem all about people dressing up like furries and attacking an abortion clinic. So like it's just that sort of stuff that makes, and like it's the idea of it is it's evangelical Christians dressing up in bunny costumes and pretending they're furries and attacking an abortion clinic to simultaneously make a statement about abortion and pin it on the furry community. Furries are people, by the way, if you don't know, who dress up in bunny costumes for their own pleasure, I think, actually, or animal costumes for their own gratification. I think there's people into that sort of stuff sexually. So yeah, that's what a furry is, in case you didn't know. But yeah, I write just stuff like that really, and I love the stuff I write sometimes. I think it's really, really good. No one gets it, obviously, or only weird people get it. Only people who share my weird sense of humor get my stuff. And it's very much the same in my comedy, very like left field, edgy material that I do on stage, I guess. Some obscene stuff I say on stage sometimes, and it gets mixed reactions. It really does. It can bomb terribly. It can, when it's done right though, it can hit really well, and you just hear shockwaves of laughter go through the audience sometimes. And I think a lot of it comes down to delivery and how it's presented, and me having the gall really, or the nerve to express things like that on stage. And yeah, I think they connect more with personality than they do with the actual material itself. Um, but yeah, I back to poetry. I write poetry as an emotional, psychological thing, I think, to harmonize my own mind and to put myself towards or put myself into a creative endeavor which I believe is worthwhile. To try and find that which Seamus Heaney said, that which has a biological right to exist. And I think a lot of my poems do have a biological right to exist. They're not mere doggerel. I'd say that about myself. I'd have enough pride in my own work to sort of say that, I think. But it would get confused with doggerel, I think. But a lot of them have more depth to them and comedy to them than might meet the eye, if you see what I mean. And doggerel just means bad poetry, basically. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't want to be like too self-indulgent with what I do either. And I do want to write for an audience, and I do want to get published actually. So I do try to, yeah, imitate the styles of the sorts of poems which do get published. And that's probably to my detriment, and I should follow kind of my own inner madness more often, I think, and write things that I enjoy reading and write things that I think people like myself will enjoy reading, and do it properly, if you know what I mean. But I mean, a lot of the stuff that I do write for publication, a lot of it does turn out to be good. So, I mean, it's not a bad thing to do that either, I don't think. And I think it improves you as a writer to try and get published. I think and it's like what Hemingway said, we should ultimately try and write literary masterpieces. And I think that is what we should be doing. I don't think we should be just churning out like Rupi Kaur's work. If you're familiar with her, a poet who I can't stand her poems. Actually, I think that they smack of laziness deeply to me. They smack of laziness and a lack of imagination. And a lack of creativity, and I'm afraid to say a lack of talent as well. But she became enormously popular on the internet, as you do. With legions of the sorts of people who are online all the time, loudly proclaiming that she's a poetic genius and so on when she really isn't. And, the poems are sort of all lowercase to be flashy, um, and they're short and unimaginative and cliched very often and rather boring, and all about like breakups and this sort of stuff, and the qualms of the heart and what have you. And they're not genius poems, but they're extraordinarily popular. But then again, obviously, it's always the worst trashy stuff which is the most popular, isn't it? And yeah, it's like that. Sometimes just the worst things become hugely successful somehow. I don't know. Because idiots exist who buy it and like it and share it and so on. And yeah, I don't know. I don't get what it is. Try to do something of quality, people reject it constantly. Then you've got to look at someone whose work, I think, in an objective sense, is inferior to your own. And you have to look at that and just worry what's wrong with the world, or just think about what's wrong with the world. But no, I mean, writing on any level can be a deeply cathartic thing. It can, yeah, get things out of you and deal with them in a space which is productive, where you're doing something constructive, let's say, where where you're not, say, like self-harming or something like that. I think I probably would self-harm if I didn't write. If I didn't write, I probably would cut myself and things like this. But I mean, I do it, yeah, to deal with my own mental health and to deal with the problems I've gone through in my own life and these sorts of things, and and to make myself happy. And I do it for myself on a level, but I do also do it for other people. I do also keep the reader in mind. And I think if you're going to be engaged in writing seriously, um, and if you're just doing it for fun, there's nothing wrong with that in particular. No, not at all. Like, there's nothing wrong with just writing funny poems and trying to share them with your friends. Really, there isn't. But if you're taking writing a bit more seriously and you're trying to get published and things like this, it's a long, long, long process of trial and error and improvement and self-correction, and reading is deeply, deeply, deeply important in this as well. You should be as well versed in poetry as any of the great poets would have been. If you want to be a great poet, you have to have read a lot of poetry, a lot of it. I read like 4 or 5 poems a day, I think. Sometimes more, sometimes less, but I get daily poems sent to me from the Poetry Foundation and from Rattle, which is a literary magazine that I'm trying to get published in. Um, yeah, because they pay and I want to get paid for it. I want to have that first paycheck from poetry. But yeah, that's a side issue, earning money with it. It makes no money as well. Unless you're rupee core, then you get millions of pounds, perversely enough. But yeah, there's infinitely better contemporary poets operating in the world than Rupee fucking Kaur. There's so many people out there with incredible talent that are often overlooked, unfortunately. Um, yeah, and these are the sorts of people who actually do come up in my emails daily, in the daily poems that I get sent every day. So reading poetry. I mean, if you want to write poetry and you don't read poetry, I'd really wonder why you wanted to write poetry. Why would it interest you if you didn't read it, if you didn't enjoy reading poems? If you don't have poetry in you, if it's not an interest of yours, fine, you just leave it alone and don't do it. But if it's something that you live and breathe and love, and it's in your bones, it's in your soul, and you need it, and poetry is like food for the soul, in my opinion, and good books are as well, um, and for the brain and the mind and the intellect, everything else or whatever you want to call it. It's not yeah, it's not running around and jumping over things, so it's not very good for the body just sitting around and reading. But yeah, it is obviously good for the mind. It sharpens the mind. It hones the intellect, which is just another way of saying sharpens the mind. But whatever, these pointless, what are they called? Gobbets, I suppose, maybe. Repetitions. What's the word I'm looking for? Fuck. Tautologies. Yeah. That's it, these pointless tautologies. That's what I'm after, yeah. Yeah, I should know that. I should. Um, what else do I want to say about poetry? Let me think. I yeah, I think it's one of the greatest things you can do in life. Just to write for yourself, write your own poetry, read poetry. I mean, the real pleasure of poetry is in the reading of it, I think, and the listening to of it. And you can listen to poems to your heart's content on YouTube. You can find any number of poetry readings. Those are excellent very often, and I listen to them again and again. And yeah, but yeah, making money with it as a career, very hard, extraordinarily hard. Very few people make their living with poetry. I don't think anyone actually makes their entire living with poetry. Certainly not, I don't think. I mean, even great poets like James Fenton, I don't think he's quite popular enough to live off the revenue from his poetry books alone. So he went and he made a load of money writing Les Miserables, the musical. He wrote, I think, yeah, assisted in the writing of Les Miserables somehow. I think. I think he might have written the dialogue and the songs of it, so all of it, But and he made millions that way. Because that's a musical, incredibly popular, based on a Victor Hugo book, so somewhat literarily respectable, I think. Yeah, and respectable enough for the likes of James Fenton to turn his hand to musical theatre. And but yeah, these people, they do a variety of other things. They teach, they give public lectures for money. They write, obviously, which is part of it, part of their income stream. They might be a critic also, which isn't more writing, I guess, just of articles, critical articles and essays and what have you. And yeah, very often there's with published poets, they'll do a variety of other things other than poetry. If you see what I mean, very often they're they're living the money they live on comes from things like teaching and giving public appearances. and giving talks and whatnot and doing workshops, even if they do that. Um, but yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. It's a hard life to pursue it seriously because I've always loved creative writing. It's always been what I want to do. I've never had any other kind of really great ambition, I don't think, other than being a writer and a stand-up comic, I guess, which is, I guess, another ambition, but it's very closely connected to writing. I haven't, for my entire life, seriously wanted to do anything other than be a writer and a comic. And that's like what I wanted to do really since I was a kid. So, because I always loved creative writing, it was always my favorite thing to do at school, like a little story or a poem or whatnot. Um, and yeah, I've been told by various people I respect because I'm good at it. I'm good enough at it, I think, to maybe make a living doing it one day. And I invest a lot of time and effort into it, writing books and poems and whatever else I write. And I've had a great time doing it. But I mean, look around me. Well, look where I'm living. I'm living in a homeless shelter. I want to, devote serious amounts of time to writing. This is the place where you end up because of that sort of ambition. I could have gone out and earned lots of money. I could have, not thrown away my university education and dropped out of university and persisted with that and gotten a job and done all that sort of stuff and um, probably even written a few poems in my spare time. But I don't think have nearly I would be as practiced a writer as I am now if I had done that. I don't think I would be. I don't think I would be, yeah, as familiar with the process of writing things as I would if I hadn't, yeah, if I'd stuck in regular jobs, if I stuck in say, an office job or something that was well paid, that paid, a nice amount of money, but was dull and uninspiring, and I had no real passion for it. I think that's a crime against life. I think it's, a crime against humanity, really. This idea that we should sell ourselves, often for a pittance, often very cheaply indeed, to large corporations who want to control every aspect of our lives while we're at work and while we're at home. And I don't think we should be doing that so much. I think we should be working independently on things that we're passionate about, trying to make money from it somehow. If we're not making money from it, we'll have to subsist on the benefit system or welfare system if you're in the United States, and live a life of poverty and grueling desperation very often. And instead of the life of quiet desperation, which is the life of the uninspiring office job, obviously. And for however much money it is, the money doesn't really matter so much. What really matters is that you're giving away your time for something that doesn't inspire you, which is a tragedy, really, I think. I think it's a tragedy that people have to live that way. I think it's a tragedy that society is set up that way. I think it's totally, totally unnecessary. It's an example, I think, of what the philosophers call the banality of evil, the obviousness of it, how obviously evil a situation is, and we we need people to do certain jobs, but very very often these uninspiring office jobs are not necessary, or they're frippery, or they're um, you know part of an organization's makeup, but don't necessarily provide anything of great utility. And the bohemian artist life is the path away from all that. It's the path towards your own self, your own soul, if you like, your own, yeah, living life in your own way and on your own terms. That's what this life entails if you're going to live the life. And I recommend you do live the life, actually, the life of the artist and the bohemian. And really tried to carve out that existence. And this will be the final thing I say, I think, because from living that life sincerely, through walking that path sincerely, you develop as a person and you develop as a writer and you gain a huge amount of experience. I mean, for instance, the experience of living in homeless shelters has really impacted me very deeply and has taught me a huge amount about life and people that I wouldn't otherwise have known, um, and has given me, yeah, a huge amount of experience from which to draw in writing. And I, intend to write poems about these places. I have written poems about these places. I'm maybe going to write a book about these sorts of experiences at some point, and yeah. There's a fucking motorcycle that goes past a moped, really. It's really loud. It goes past my window every single fucking day about twice. And it really annoys me. It annoys fucking everyone here as well. And it's also unnecessary. Yeah, so, I mean, don't find yourself in the slums and the pits of wage slavery if you can possibly help it. Just become part of the fourth estate, the bohemian underclass. Find an art that you're talented at, that you're good enough at to make some money doing it. Practice, practice, practice. 10,000 hours and all of this stuff. Get really good at it if you possibly can. Um, Make money doing it in whatever way you can. And I've seen, people even selling poems on the streets and making money that way. And you can do that even. You can. That's possible. I've actually made money selling my poems on the streets of Amsterdam when I was homeless in Amsterdam. But yeah, it's a long story why that happened. But this will be the last thing I say, I think. Yeah, writing poetry on the streets of Amsterdam for cash, saying people can like give me money or not is up to them. Very often they would give me money, but the Dutch I think take things quite literally compared to the British, whereas a British person might see that sort of offer as a euphemism or being unnecessarily self-deprecating as a mode of charm or trying to be charming, if you know what I mean. Whereas, and they give money for that reason. The Dutch are very much not like that. It's just a cultural difference, I think. They're much more direct and they say what they mean. So when you say you don't have to give me money for this, they very often didn't give me money for it. But this, I remember one time this old lady gave me 20 euros for a poem I'd written. So it was like, that can happen as well. For a single poem written on a bar mat, a drinks mat that you find in a bar. I just asked a bar for as many of those as they could possibly give me, and I wrote poems on the backs of them and gave them out to people. And you can do it that way if you want as well. Um, so yeah, that's living the life, ladies and gentlemen. That's what it's really like. It's rewarding. It's fulfilling. It feels amazing. Um, Living the genuine life, walking a genuine path. That's what it allows you to do. And I think really and truly that's what we all want, even though we think it's money, we think it's success in a kind of a plastic sense of success. We think it's fame or adulation, which basically amounts to the love of other people, which is, I guess, what we're doing it for. But if you go desperately after the love of other people, you'll just push them away. Like, if you desperately go after a girl, right, she'll push you away because she thinks you're creepy and obsessed with her. Um, in precisely the same way, if you go after fame, money, and success, the more those things start to slip through your fingers, I think. Whereas if you're going for genuine human connection, passion in an individualistic sense, and the desire to master a skill, I think, more like, and it's, a pure form of creative power comes to you, and that's when great work starts coming to you as well. It's when you get past the kind of the facade that's put up in front of these things, And you start to see into the reality of what doing this is like, um, then you you can operate within that sphere if you're being realistic about things. Um, and you will get published eventually. You will. I mean, most people would. I think most people could probably write a publishable poem. Um, I think, but it'll take years of practice. I think for everybody, you won't get published very often. Well, you might get lucky and get published. I don't know early on, but it comes down to it. Really is a numbers game. Actually, getting published. It's just a matter of sending out constant submissions to different literary journals, magazines, getting enough publications in literary journals and magazines under your belt first, and then sending it out to publishing houses and trying to get an agent and so on to represent you. And yeah, like all that stuff, you become attuned to the realities of it quite early on, I think. And yeah, we might be Ruby Core and you'd have a huge success by delivering trash to the public. I'm sorry, Ruby Core, but I hate your poetry. This is drivel to me. Sorry, it's rubbish reading. But yeah, um, what else do I want to say? I don't think I want to say anything else. So I think I've stopped saying everything I want to say. I might cut this video down or try to into smaller sections, but then again, I might just leave it out there for people to trawl through at their own pleasure. But yeah, how and why to write poetry. And the why is very important. I think very, very important in the figuring out of how to write poetry. Is the how and the why are as important as each other. And as long as you're walking the genuine path and you know what that path is, and you're capable of doing it, if you see what I mean, if you're capable of enduring poverty, for instance, to practice your art as often as you possibly can, um, then yeah, by all means, go for it. Read up on Charles Bukowski and his life. Um, and he sold his soul to the 9 to 5 drudgery for many years, but he ultimately did get published and he got successful. And yeah, he was given, I think, $100 a week to write by his publisher, and that enabled him to write full time. And he produced a great oeuvre of literature, and is hugely respected, among the most respected poets that America's ever produced. And funny, witty, profound, dark, inspiring writing, deeply powerful stuff, deeply moving stuff. Great work, really. Um, but you know that that's forged through experience. You can't write that stuff unless you've been that person, unless you've done those things that he talks about. And it'll come across as imitation, I think, or it come across as pretentious, very possibly, if I want to use that term. As yeah, if you try to affect that in your own writing, if you think that this is the route to money, fame, success, and everything else that you think goes along with the life of writing poetry, and you're under that delusion, then you might attempt to write a Bukowski-esque poem, for instance, rather than finding your own voice, which is a difficult thing to do. You know, is yeah, tricky finding your own voice. But you must do it. You must, you must, you must. And once you've found it, never lose it. And use that and your own experiences, your own wealth of knowledge and experience to write great things. Try and write great things, definitely. Try and write those masterpieces if you can. Try to find that poetry which has a biological right to exist. All these things that we get taught about. Try to find the true form of the sculpture from within the stone. If you're the sculptor, which is what you must do if you're the sculptor, see the form that already seems to exist somehow, or which should exist, or which has a biological right to exist, as Heaney points out or says. Try to find those things, you won't go far wrong. And that is the how and why of writing poetry, a 30-minute video for you.